desk, let's now head straight to the NPP headquarters where Communications Director Yao Boabian Samoa is addressing the media on the controversial E-levy.
Yeah, because of COVID, the year of return was so brilliant. Popular social events around which several small businesses function were also completely shut down. For many small business people, they simply consumed their financial reserves whilst waiting for COVID-19 to go away. Yet government protected all public sector workers. There were no layoffs and salaries were paid throughout. The CAP bus also dispersed 600 million cedis to support small businesses, while school children were protected to go to school with PPEs and associated other facilities. Hot and dry meals were shared to the most vulnerable people, and free water and electricity made available to cushion the hardship. Now, you may be aware that the World Economic Outlook is an authoritative report on international economic trends published annually by the IMF. In the January 2022 edition, the IMF paints a very bleak picture of world economic prospects. The report says new COVID-19 variants are forcing new mobility restrictions on the world economy, disrupting production and supply chains with increasing commodity costs, including ever-rising fuel prices and increasing inflation. Global growth is expected to slow down from 5.9% in 2021 to 4.4% in 2022. The quotation in the World Economic Outlook is as follows. It's worth sharing, so I'll quote from the report. The emergence of new COVID-19 variants could prolong the pandemic and induce renewed economic disruptions. Moreover, supply chain disruptions, energy price volatility, and localized wage pressures mean uncertainty around inflation and policy paths is high. As advanced economies lift policy rates, risks to financial stability and emerging market and developing economies, that includes Ghana, emerging market and developing economies, capital flows, currencies, and fiscal positions, especially with debt levels having increased significantly in the past 2 years, may emerge. So in short, what it's saying is that we should expect more restrictions in supply chains, we should expect more price increases in the fuel sector, we should expect more interest rate increases, and all that poses a threat to economies like that of Ghana, where you can have, in that case, restriction of capital flows, depreciation of the currency, and a deterioration in the debt position. And these risks are prevalent even now, as in January 2022, per the report of the IMF. So people still cannot go to work properly to produce, and it is creating scarcity. Where there is scarcity, prices rise. In our country, where people are already deprived of income because of job losses or a business that's closed down, rising prices, especially fuel prices, is a big, big blow to the ordinary person as well as the government. Many livelihoods are under pressure, and government budgets that depend on import trade and international loans and grants will suffer from rising debt levels and the volatile currency markets, as I've explained. So this is where we are with the COVID economy worldwide, as it also impacts Ghana. Now, the worst aspect is that we don't even know how long it will last before we can live steady, work, and travel normally. Having almost won the war of keeping people alive by protecting their health, we are now faced with a world in which the IMF is telling us that every economy is being squeezed and we have to rebuild people's pockets. In that respect, Ghana relying on IMF bailouts and borrowing is not only going to be difficult, but very expensive to the people of Ghana. In the face of these unexpected economic challenges of COVID-19, the NPP remains focused on supporting the economy back onto a sound footing. It is in the above context, therefore, that the Nana Akufo-Addo-led government proposes a homegrown opportunity to rebuild the nation's pockets. That is the E-levy, a tax based on our sense of community and contribution, an opportunity to generate revenue that may be scarce and expensive on international markets. Unfortunately, the E-levy has become part of the hot quagmire that is our hang parliament. Actions in parliament show clearly that the NDC intends to exploit its numbers to the full in pursuit of political gain, never mind any danger to nationalist ideals. From a contentious election of a speaker to the passage of government's revenue policies, Parliament continues to see fierce engagement from both sides of the House. But at least we believe that we have risen above it all. The important thing is that the international community has noticed. Civil society is participating. That notice from the international community about the E-levy and otherwise, and the loud, raucous noises, is what has led Fitch, Moody's, Standard & Poor to give mixed reviews to Ghana in their latest round of assessments. Now, those assessments are meant to test economic health, but they take major account of the political temperature on which the economic health depends. So all the rating agencies believe our economy is inherently sound. It's important. Our economy is sound based on strong performance pre and during the pandemic. Pre and during the pandemic. Don't forget that before the pandemic, we grew from 2016 up to 2019 at an average almost at 7% per annum of GDP. And so that soundness, that inherent soundness was what supported us to stay in focus and not drop into negative growth in the year COVID was very, very high. We managed to sustain ourselves at 0.4%. So how do we get out? Even as at last year, our economy had rebounded and growth had hit beyond 4%. Now, the rating agencies believe that E-levy could be a very important part of that recovery. They are saying it in their reports. They believe the E-levy, when passed, could be a very important part of our recovery efforts. They've also accepted that the 20% cut by the government is important to support that process. So we have a situation where Ghana's economy, provided we can resolve ourselves in Parliament, is in a position to grow even faster than before, given that there is still uncertainty worldwide about the direction of COVID, which means we'll have to keep spending and spending and spending on containment measures, and yet we need to spend in other sectors as well to grow the economy. So in the light of this situation, we the NPP find former President Mohammed's outburst that the E-levy is, and I'm quoting him, neither adequate nor viable. It seems a bit myopic to say at this stage that the E-levy is neither adequate nor viable. Seems rather myopic. Of course, he's entitled to take advantage of the situation in Parliament, but he needs to come to the quick realization that the new normal is a far cry from what he knew and experienced before, and that old-fashioned assumptions cannot work like before in the current COVID economy. His position was laid bare in the article he authored, a 2-page article 2 days ago, where he laments all the issues that the IMF has already identified as symptomatic of the emergent post-pandemic economy worldwide. All the things former President Mahama says are wrong with our economy are the same things that are wrong with the entire world economy because of COVID, which he refuses to appreciate, even though he set up a technical team to support him. For example, he's castigated the government for not having a plan for fiscal consolidation that development partners will buy into. But he states this without realizing that the development community have accepted the cost-cutting measure of 20% in expenditure and the E-levy as the building blocks of our recovery. So where is the lack of a plan that he is mentioning? At the moment, everybody usually is focused on three things: increasing revenue internally, cutting waste, and managing debt. These are the three prescriptions the IMF gives. So at this stage, for the former president to insist that we should go to a Senchi-like event where we will then all march off to the IMF for relief, it doesn't really work if we are already implementing the measures that the IMF is likely to bring forward. What will happen is what happened to him. Employment will be frozen. Opportunities for investing in other areas will be curtailed. And that is why in his time, nurses sat home from 2012 after completing school, and worst of all, roads couldn't be invested in. So metropolitan roads were all dubbed cocoa roads in order to try and see if monies could be siphoned off the cocoa road fund, because that's an enclave economy literally, where borrowing in support of the cocoa crop goes on. So having gone to the IMF, we are now struggling to fund roads, including in the cities, and dubbing them cocoa roads. We can't go back to that. And we will not go back to that because we have a positive relationship with the IMF. We have a very positive relationship with the IMF already in terms of the Article 4 consultations that we do annually. And our last Article 4 consultation, the IMF stated clearly how well we had dealt with COVID. And again, I'll quote them. They released this 23rd July 2021. This is the IMF about Ghana's economy within COVID. Ghana has been hit hard by the pandemic. I'm quoting the IMF. The government's proactive response, this is the IMF's language, the government's proactive response helped contain the spread of COVID-19, protecting lives and limiting the impact on economic activity. However, partly because of the pandemic, the fiscal position worsened considerably last year with a sharp increase in public sector debt. So the IMF is aware of the state of our economy and what brought it about. And under Article 4 consultative status, Ghana, as is prepared now, can and will implement the IMF prescriptions that I have already stated. That is increasing revenue through the E-levy, cutting waste, which is already been positioned at 20% of intended expenditures, and managing debt. The government has put a cap on borrowing this year as well. So clearly, the former president's write-up is just intended to tell you how bad it is without any solutions. But everybody knows where we are, including the IMF that he's relying on. We have moved beyond knocking good policies down for political sabotage, even though the NDC has been very good at that. If you recall, in the 7th Parliament, there were blatant attempts to sink the fortunes of the country. Fortunes they left in tatters when we took over in 2017. When the government issued a $2.3 billion bond in April 2017, as part of urgent steps to reprofile the threatening debt bequeathed to Ghana by the Mahama-led NDC government, the NDC minority in Parliament wrote to the Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States of America seeking to stop the bond issue. They wrote to America to stop the bond issue when we were using to reprofile our debt and stabilize the economy. Again, in August 2018, the NDC wrote to the IMF and the World Bank to try and stop the novel Sino-Hydro bauxite barter agreement brokered by His Excellency the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. The Sino-Hydro agreement, which was going to fund much needed infrastructure as well as help us complete the loop in the bauxite train that is refine bauxite in Ghana and localize the full benefits of bauxite mining, create new jobs and skills, and position Ghana as a major player in the forest market through export of aluminium-related products, was kicked against by the NDC. The minority leader, who was very vociferous in that process, has been fitted in his constituency with the first ever interchange, Tamale Central, due for completion soon. Again, the NDC failed miserably when they wrote to the IMF and the World Bank in May 2020 to stop the NPP government from accessing 1 billion in COVID-19 related funds, citing misreporting of figures, a grievous offense that no country should wish for itself, though President Kufuor had to pay a fine for the NDC having done exactly that before. So where are we with the conversation about the E-levy? That is where we believe civil society, academia, concerned Ghanaians, especially the media, should take their time and analyze the conditions dispassionately, very dispassionately. Look at it against the backdrop of the international COVID economy, where everything has become scarce. Capital is scarce, production is down, supply chain disruptions, and the concomitant rise in prices of everything, including container shipping. You are aware that container shipping prices have tripled, and in some instances quadrupled. A container, $2,400, 20-footer is now $8,000. $8,000 for a larger, $6,000 for a 40-footer has hit beyond $10,000 to $12,000. That means whatever you get is expensive. You put in the container, it will still be more expensive. You arrive in Ghana, you sell it at a very high price. And already people who may have lost their jobs in the hospitality industry cannot then access those goods you have brought in. So it is not a question of moving away from the reality in order to go and depend on IMF, where the IMF itself is telling us that we need to do better with ourselves because the entire world is in a difficulty. And that is where the E-levy conversation is going. We believe that the way Ghanaian society is socially based, community based, contribution is not strange to us. So you have a contributory tax where everybody chips in small, and it has the capacity to grow into figures that will take us away from our current situation. That will help us to stabilize the COVID economy, which was unexpected. That is what we are saying. It's not just a question of poo-pooing it because it will bring hardship. Yes, I've explained. We are conscious of the hardship. We're very, very conscious. But we need to go further in order to deal with that hardship. We need to go further in order to deal with that hardship. The solution doesn't lie outside the shores of Ghana. The solution lies with Ghanaians. This is the time to do this. And the NDC would have us rather step backwards. Unfortunately, we are in a situation in Parliament where the numbers are extremely tight. But we believe that the most an opposition should do is to insist on putting its voice on record. And after that, allow the majority to pass its policies. Because the test of viability of those policies will come up at the next election. The test of the viability of our policy on the E-levy will come up at the next election. It doesn't lie with the opposition to insist by brute force to stop the government policy. It doesn't lie with the minority to do that. The NPP has the numbers to pass the E-levy because both deputy speakers, the first deputy speaker, who is NPP from the Kwai constituency, has a vote, and the second deputy speaker, who is an independent from Fomena, also has a vote, and he's allied with the NPP in Parliament, giving us a slim majority of 1. with or without the Honorable Speaker in the chair, that majority ought to be able to pass the E-levy, because the speakers under Article 13(1) do not have to give reasons when they rise at any point in time from the chair. And when they rise and step down into the chamber, as an MP, the deputy speakers as MPs have a right to vote. So, invoking Order 13(1) would mean that if the second deputy speaker votes and the first deputy speaker is in the chair, the first deputy speaker ought to be able to leave the chair for the second deputy speaker to sit, whilst he also goes round to vote. It is absolutely and entirely lawful. There's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, the last time we saw a scrum in Parliament about that, and it doesn't edify the standing orders. I want to repeat, the minority have every right to put on record in a very forceful way through debates their disagreement with the E-levy measure. Every right. But once it gets onto the floor of Parliament, after the debates, the majority have a right to have the legislation passed. The test is the impact on the people, which will come when a decision at the ballot box is to be made. So now the biggest question facing the Ghanaian voter is which of the two dominant parties to trust going forward. The party that continues to resist genuine attempts to reform the future of Ghana, preferring instead sterile IMF policies, or the party with a track record of innovative, socially caring policies that enhance personal welfare and elevate growth. The NDC with IMF mentality, and the NPP with a growth mentality supported by viable social interventions. Where do we go from here? So, in conclusion, I want to say that we, the NPP, have a plan. The NPP have a plan. Our plan is to consolidate the process of growth from within, observing all the strictures of the IMF, which I'm sure is worldwide now, i.e., trying to raise revenue internally. We are trying to do that with your E-levy. Cutting waste, we are looking at the 20%, and managing debt. But beyond that, we want to continue investing in generating youth employment. That is You Start. We want to continue investing in building roads. We want to continue investing in providing reliable digital access with security. On the international scene, the NPP government is spearheading advocacy towards review of the international financial architecture in order to be more supportive of Africa. Finally, the NPP is inviting all of civil society and the media. I'm re-emphasizing this point. We are inviting all civil society and the media to deliberately and patiently analyze the potential of the E-levy to make dramatic change to public finances. And at the end of the day, as I've said before, when that measure is passed, the reflection of its viability, its value, will be tested in the 2024 elections. And we believe that by that time, the significance of the E-levy, driving growth and enabling us invest in the areas that matter to us, employment, digital space, roads, and paying down our debt, will really then put the Ghanaian on a sound footing in terms of their personal economy and opportunities for personal growth. Thank you very much.
And you are many adolfo. I no pay me mom watching. A bob on Kaya said, E-levy home common. A numwan ye gina in Tiano pay yasan frame ha. Na NPP, Sebi, Yanso, Yanimon Timaidum, into Yan Kebia, a behayena, we say, a dom MPP, up to your swaba, your sum MPP. And ye twa ba e ma NPP ba by mu ye keka kɔ ebro obipinum nti ye mu duru e wo man num ye nyina ye ka ho bi e na e how bia COVID-19 dia brɛ e fa ye botom ani ade no e ka ye nti be sumi dum wotwini COVID-19 be duru Ghana yenim hawa e dia brɛ enwuma asɛ no bojo enwuma asɛ no ene yenya ne ye adwuma ankra adwuma nipa ekeka kɔ opepe ba akɔ ne fa na eduru ba bi no omadwuma sem eye basa ya antene bus abusumi sika so a ase mentai ma adwuma dodo na be kɔ no so ne betua wo nti yenim say COVID ahaye papa yenimpa ni titru kra po so ne yede yenim say niam bi wo ho a ehia yen pa enti dwumadie kase e wo ho ye to din ye ware ye ayie ni nyina nkrofo wo ho a ye omadwuma kase pa omoye nyina so adwuma ehye ebi say sebe ye ka se ntimi nhia biem na se eba saa ye tie ne se wo ye bojo a na odwetire ahye so o te faako onko no waba nti yenim sesese no enema mu edi sabre no ya ban ye ne se wo ye na dwen se onyi obi edi e wa ba adwuma mu otua obi aka na afi nso ye sa cheche bosian ketenkete sika ne keka kɔ 600 million cedis ye cheche ma bojo anwuma se be ya omunso ebesan gina na so bere no mu no anu so no aban ehye ne ho kete epe sika ema nkoda ho ban ema mu ko school saa bere no wo ma nkɔ a nkenne aburu ye so ka haye na bad ye din pa nso ye san che aduane de ya noa ene de ye noa ye ema wo ma na se bi o mo kire o mo pa ene ye san ede nsuo ene nyinam kanea nso echeye se be ya ni nyina no ye ho be han yen na ni nyina chire na ne ye hunu se ya boy ye ho ban afri yare enum nenso afei de aka ye botomu ankasa ye ma makeka nyina no yade na de aka ye botomu o yetimi aboy ye ho ban afri yare enum an de kwa ne sa na afei ne hu sise aka ye botomu ankasa na yare a eku na aka botom de ka hu se enwo asem ka na nti iwiasi kubatan IMF omoni disa ne ma we nyina chi omo kase se ikura yare no se yiniti akone esa ahodo so nti omo yam hihye omo se sikasem iwiasi sikasem na to ape no san ya beti akofom kura sika ho be ye na bosia bo be ye din enna ne ma bo be san akosoro efze ne ma no wonya bipo en wato enna odi akokrom akoton ne nyina ye hu se de fa ngo bo esi tumlika wiase afa na nyina yenso ye de na ekopa te se de wiase ekɔ nyina ne nyina afiri saa ya de bɔne yi a ɛka yen ya se be ɛka nipa ba akɔwe de a na ka nipa dom apem ebotom eno nti yes rekase sabri no nya biriya ye gina ye tibiam e di susu se sebe aban enhihye ye mtu bibie ngu efise aban hihye no eno na edi akira ebedumye ya wo Ghana se ye nimbiriya sa yade no etubetwa sisi ye nimbiriya etubetwa so de enim ni se o se ye asiesie ni epegya ye botom san ba nanim na enema mienu na sa asiesie no egina so enema miensa po se ye be pegya ye sika sem sika eba aban eho a o de shempu ntudwumam se ye be pegyam eto kwan so ewo Ghana se ye beti ye kaso se ye beti aban eka oboso eni se ye behwe kwan e fa so bobosia na ye bosia enye yensen ni nyina no aban aboa no ho se de ni abere se oye ama sombo ama ye nyina enu nti na aban de E-levy aba E-levy no ehun komo na ekoso no yenkan hu se ye bibifo no de tutusuo dudu suban na wo ye so ye bibia no ye ni nkabum ye tutene kakra ye bibia ye bia kakra ni akabum ni ade aye nti ne aduru se the COVID-19 atwe yen yakoduru yi waban o man ehia se onso otu botom kakra na de boa eno ne yen anopa ye kase Ghana nyina yentu ye bo yentintina nimdifo omo moti de ekoso na se yentintina ni yenhwe wiase afa na nyina ni yenhwe de ekoso se de IMF akan ni yenhu se yedwa nkobia ne yen yankasa yeni babia akobiem gise yegira ye na aso efise nipa na yakobɔ no bosia no no so de ka nti ni bosia bo ayede na wo ye de ekotoka ema wo nti tutusuo dudu na wose ye ya yemia ye ni se de bibia ye no na bebia ye duru ye hu ye haw ano ye hu yare ye no ano yade ne ne se covid ye twe san na yenya sa duru we no yenjintum ne mini aduru no se aduru no amanonifuo ya da bia kan economy ho asem amanonifuo ya mampanyi da dajo mama pese ye ko mgoyi omo na gi atum se E-levy no ebeboa ye economy no omo gi atum se beboa ye omo gi atum se ye ti aban sikasem so 20% se de ye ka no eno so beboa se na ma mienu no amanonifuo na gi atum nti enya dia sebi ye ko IMF a ebesisa ne se IMF no omo mienye yakomodie bi niema bi wo ha omo mpeni mie ntuaka yemtimi ntua ye free SHS yentimi ntua ye allowances a ye tua ye napko no mia de nyina no ombetwa kwan yokura ba ye de yo mama e ko obi no nurses a no ma wie school 2012 wantimi anfo mo adwuma ko wantimi anfo mo adwuma emso ombeka che o se ombe hye okete se memfa obia adwuma nipa ehu dere o se ye kanya nipa na bibi kakra ba no botom se memfa na adwuma nti ye betimi ni aye mafa ye adwuma aye de se fata ama o mani aso abra ye mfa ye nsa nkɔ hye ebo ase ewo ho na se enu no be ye dia na gina se ye gi E-levy no etum se enu na ebeboa ye se na ye fie yenya ne aye ne fie ena sika ne be fie ensi hu ensa mfiri baabi emma na yedada no kakra yetimi yebe tuye ho aka yetimi di bia hye yakwan mu yetimi di bia hye ye nnwuma sem mu na economy no asa gina ne naso ama sika sem no atene enu nti yede ye wogidie se ewum se mampanyi dada adwo mama o akwanya se otimi kasa ntie ya na nunie atwere ngoma bi ama obia kinkan bi nom ne ade o ho akwan se o kasa ne mom no ne ma na o ka no on hye danda bibi fufuro bia edi nsɛm a wɔka sɛ ha yɛn no saa nsɛm na IMF aka dada sɛ ha obiara wɔ wiase COVID-19 nti ɛna ne nhyehyɛ a wɔpɛ sɛ yɛyɛ sɛ yɛnkɔ IMF no ɛna maka akyerɛ mu no ɛhia sɛ yɛde yɛn nsa kɔhyɛ boase wɔ IMF na ɔmo hwim yɛ papa de afiri yɛ na ɔmo san ka kyerɛ yɛn sɛ yɛnkɔ yɛ E-levy ɔmo asan abɛka kyerɛ sɛ yɛnkɔ yɛ E-levy na ɛbɛboa yɛn nti si yɛbɛtumi ayɛ deɛ a na adan nti na yɛnyɛ ne yɛnkɔ so ɛno ɛne deɛ ɛwɔ si yɛhyɛ ne nso paa sɛ waban NPP aban ne nhyehyɛeɛ a wɔyɛ no ɛyɛ nyinaa yɛadom ntia nhyehyɛeɛ no nyinaa ne gyina sɛ yɛbɛhwɛn ne apagya wo ɛfisɛ ɔmampanyin Nanado yare ba foforɔ saa na ɔkan wɔ se ɔbɛbɔ yɛ ho ban ɔma yare ne nkonyan na yɛwia nipa de owu a wontimi nsan mfa ne mma na yɛwia yɛbotom ahye yɛbotom awu a yɛbɛpɛ akɔn nuasa ahodoɔ a yɛbɛpagya yɛbotom saa na IMF ɛne yɛbɛdi nkɔmmɔ 2021 mo ka kyerɛ yɛn sɛ aban ayɛ adeɛ aban abɔ yɛ ho ban aban hwɛeɛ ma ewuo so te aban hwɛeɛ ma COVID antia te sɛ amro so Ghana na emom no saa hwɛ no mu no ɛde ka aba fie saa ka no nene yɛte ho a ɛwɔ siesie ɛno nti mo adaroma mo na mo punu mo ka ɛdɔm te mo fa mo ho nyim mo ka ho asɛm a mo nto mo bo ɛnyɛ sɛbi kasa ne dede ana sɛ ɛyɛ nsisinya a obɛyɛ nsudi a obɛyɛ ɛde ato wiase afa na nyinaa ɛde ato de ɛkɔ soɔ no na wahu sɛ ɛdeɛn paa de ɛyɛ a ɛbɛboa yɛn sɛ ɔman Ghana a yɛbɛgyina yɛn na so a yɛbɛyɛ ama yɛn ho na yɛmfa yɛn nto obi foforɔ so sɛ ɔna bɛyɛ nti ɛnɛ yɛbɛhyia mo a yasɛm tiawa no ɛne sɛ mommoa Ghana mommoa aban no na E-levy no yɛn nyinaa yɛnni ho nkɔmmɔ pa na yɛnyɛ ntom na ɛno ɛna bɛgye yɛn nkwa afiri si yɛkɔ akɔkyini baabi foforɔ a yɛbɛda da yɛka mu na yɛde yɛn nsa akɔhyɛ boase a ɛmmoa yɛn NPP deɛ yɛwɔ gyidie sɛ mosom nti ne ɛbae NPP deɛ yɛwɔ anidasoɔ sɛ ɛkwan a yɛfa so siesie COVID no saa kwan na yɛbɛfa so asiesie economy yɛayɛ bi pɛn 2016 yɛbɛto yɛyɛ COVID baeɛ yɛyɛ ɛnɛ yɛbɛtumi ayɛ na nhyehyɛeɛ de ato mo anim ɛno no aban no se ntotosoɔ dudu nhyehyɛeɛ E-levy yɛn nyinaa yɛkeka nsa akyi kakra yɛmfa mbom ɛno ɛbɛpagya yɛn akɔ yɛnim meda mo ase pii